And as I go, I love to sing my knapsack on my back.
Good morning, Centerville High School class of 60. I'm speaking to you from my home up in Clear Lake. Thanks to Phil, who has spent hours and hours and hours going through many of my films from this particular trek that Peter and I did in July of 2013, 10 days, approximately 125 kilometers or 85 miles. The pilgrimages started about the year 814. They were people wanting to visit the remains of St. James, Santiago, that were housed in the cathedral in the center of Compostela. I've taken selected books, pages from the guidebook by John Briardley, who passed away earlier this year. It's sort of a guidebook and definitely a Bible for Peter and I, showing not only the places of interest, but places to stay, usually hostels, dormitories, posadas, and also the journeys, elevations and distances. So you could see whether you were going to be doing 1,000 feet in 20 miles or shorter, and you could plan your day and your various stays. You don't make reservations unless you're traveling with a company, but if you're just like most pilgrims going at your own rate, you find a rest place when you kind of at the end of the day. And if one isn't available in the little village that you're in, you move on to the next village. Hopefully one or two will be available. The Camino means way or road, and it's the affectionate name. If you are talking to people and they say, oh, I did the way, that's what they mean. There are many ways now from all over Europe, Italy, the Netherlands, France, Germany, Austria. There are several going through Portugal. We happen to take the Camino Frances, which is the most traveled one, I think. And since 2013, this has been a international heritage site. And so the tourists obviously have caught on to it, and up to 200,000 people visit every year. Although I say that, but it's not that crowded. Everyone is very respectful. They space themselves out. It's a time of reflection, and so people are very kind. The unofficial greeting as you meet people or walk alongside of them is buen camino, and that means have a good day, have a good trip. For our trip, Peter and I met at Heathrow. I came down from visiting friends and family in Cambridge, and Peter flew in from San Francisco. From there, we flew over to A Coruña, where we dropped off our suitcases at a traveler's hotel because we were heading on to a wedding in the French Alps for my family right afterwards. We jumped on a train and headed down towards Sarria. And Phil's going to show you a couple of slides to let you know whereabouts in the world we were. You can see it's Europe and the top of Africa. The capital of Spain, of course, is Madrid. We flew into the upper left-hand corner or the northeast, and you can see it there on the far left, A Coruña, and that's where we began our train trip to go down to Sarria. Over there at the bottom where Phil is getting it enlarged, Sarria is one of the stop-off points. You can see where we stayed. We did about 8 to 10 miles pretty much every day, full packs, and we ended up in Santiago de Compostela. This is the 100 mark, and that means 100 kilometers left to go into Compostela, and it has the typical scallop shell there in the little square at the top. You can see that it's a windy day. We're kind of windblown, and the 100-mile mark, if you start before there and begin getting your passport stamped, a little passport that you get at the Insaria, then you okay, now we are on the path leading over to the beginning of the trail or the trailhead. There's a staff here and a gourd which would have held water, and just below is the scallop that the travelers carried in case they didn't have a gourd. They could scoop up water to drink along the way. There we are, having our first stamp on our passport. This is about half the way up a steep grade to a ridge. The fellow there stamping our passport is a traveler and a volunteer. They take turns coming out on the trail. It's a momentary thing, but it's a welcome thing, because if you are completely stamped out at the end of the journey in the town, then you get a certificate of completion. But they do check your stamps. I have to say, you can't skip over something. No cheating. This is following the stream. The name of it is Ferreiros, and you walk on the stones crossing. You see Peter there at the end. He raced ahead so I could take a picture of him. And there's a little stone wall, and the path continues. This is the road to Rente, which is another stop along a village on the way. I happen to love this picture. It's a stone wall, and we saw hundreds of these along the way, but this one happened to have a really nice collection of flowers and lichen and all kinds of things growing on it. And again, it's a very, very old stone path that was built by the early people in Galicia, which is the northern province that we've been traveling in. And the next picture is a lady working in her fields. It's probably how she looked, or her ancestors would have looked 100 years or 200 years ago. She's got her cover up. She has a plastic thing over her. It's like a vest, and the typical gray or very boring color. They have blue, dark blue, gray, and black are the ones that are most often seen. She's an older lady in her garden, and just harvesting some of the things that she might need to cook her meal. This is going into the village of Porto Marin. And it doesn't have any historic significance. I just thought the dogs were not barking, not leaping up and down, just watching everyone in the town. And people looked up and said something to them, and they just kept smiling and and looking at the travelers. This is the town of Porto Marin or Porto Marin. This is an arcade. On the main street in town. You can see that it's a very modern, well, relative to where we are, it's a very modern building. The arcades are open. People can go in and out across the street. Behind there, about 6 feet, are all of the shops that people would need to live in the village. There we have the Church of San Nicolas, and it's in Porto Marin. It was carried from the valley below, stone by stone, and reconstructed here at the top. Obviously, no soils engineers available, and it is leaning a little tiny bit. So, but it was carried with great devotion up to the city. It is the Nicholas. It's approximately 1200 BC, and they needed to create a reservoir for the valley below, and that had to go. There's a farmer with his very efficient modern tool. It's a pitchfork. He's most likely carrying hay for his animals, or maybe he's just clearing out some weeds that don't belong there. You can see a typical garden off to the right. And in the background, there's a shed where he probably keeps his tools, and maybe his dog sleeps. I'm not sure. Okay, the next one is a plantation of eucalyptus trees. And this was when we were there in 2013. They were trying to get rid of a lot of the eucalyptus trees around Marin. These were planted specifically for paper. So they grow quickly. They have shallow roots. They're easy to take down, and they will be used in the paper mills in Italy. This is a statue, and there's lots of different statues along the way. They point the direction to the path or the route that you should be taking to get to Santiago de Compostela. The lady has her arms in two directions, but the gentleman is showing. So where the two arms are together, that's the way that you should go. The next slide shows you what you are facing if you don't have a statue. You're facing the village. At the entry, there's a church and a cemetery in the background. Somewhere along in that village, there will be scallop shells in the stones, and you will follow the scallop shells, and that will lead you through the village and out onto the other side. This is a way to cross a stream. There's water on both sides. This particular stone bridge is very solid. You can walk right across it. There's no danger of them tipping, unlike some others, one that you'll be seeing fairly soon. Peter's at the other end. Again, water on both sides. It's a shallow stream, maybe 2 feet deep. You wouldn't die if you fell in. You might get wet, but other than that, nothing bad would happen. One of the great things about the Camino is that you stop in the middle of the morning and you stop in the middle of the afternoon for tea or something else. This fellow who owned this particular coffee bar was a character. He had everything from shrunken heads to bird cages to water buffalo horns, coins, bills, empty bottles, full bottles, pictures of travelers who had come through more than once and left items, souvenirs with him. And they're all on display. I don't think he has a single thing that isn't on display. Next is a bridge, and Peter and I approached it with great trepidation because along the path up the hill, there was a truck coming down, and here it comes. It looked so much wider than the bridge itself, and it had a trailer. But nick of time, it reared off of the main path. We were able to go safely onto the bridge, and he came along on a lower path that had been created, I guess, for truck travel. Here we have an early pilgrim. This is probably what they looked like. They had a tricorn hat. They had a scallop shell in the middle of the hat, the staff, the gourd for their water, the cape over their shoulders for the rain. It does rain occasionally. And obviously no barbershop nearby. So most of them probably would have had a beard, mustache, and at least reasonably long hair. So that's an old time pilgrim. In that same town, the specialty is octopus, and giant octopus are everywhere. Octopi are everywhere, and there's a fellow who has a shop. He's filling those. Oh yes, he's filling the pots with the oysters, and then he'll boil them up and either fry them or bread them or make them for dinner. Sometimes they chop them up and use them in salad, like calamari. This is a difficult bridge. This is crossing the stream. We're at the shallow part. All of the rocks tip. So you have to walk exactly in the middle of the rocks, preferably 1 foot in front of the other one. It's not too long, but it definitely is a challenge. And at the end, if you made it across, this is a roadside snack bar. The lady on the right-hand side has just delivered her morning snacks. They're all organic, mostly fruits, some vegetables, and then she has a couple of gallons of water there for the travelers to fill their personal water bottles. And there's a sign on the left-hand side. It's an honor system, and it just tells you where to put your cash as you go along. Next one, very frightening sign, perros peligrosos, means dangerous dogs. And sure enough, oh my gosh, naturally we held our breath. And as we approached the dogs, we were Ah, so pleased. The larger dog opened its eyes and gave us a look and then closed the eyes again. So we made it through that hazardous area quite well. This is a dappled path, and I'd read about them. Peter read about them in poetry and lots of literature, and I don't think I'd ever seen one quite like it. There's a tunnel of trees overhead with just slight openings as you go along, and as the sun came through, we walked along this. I liked it, thought it was terrific. Then there's a shrine and a basin for laundry. This is a laundry area. The shrine would have had a statue at some time, but you know what happens to things that are removable. Someone removed them. So the women would gather here and do their laundry. The stones on the left-hand side of the basin are slanted, and that's where they would scrub their clothing with their bars of soap or their rounds of soap. Next, a carpeted forest of trees, and I loved these. There were many along the way. I don't know what the names of the flowers or the kinds of ferns, but it was just lovely to look through and walk along with. There's a kilometer marker that we're heading in the right direction. It was a late spring, and so we still had lots of wildflowers available. This is not the most beautiful or the most overwhelming scene of wildflowers, but I liked it because we had the marker, and the clamshell is very visible. It was well incised. Next, we have at the very, very outskirts of Santiago de Compostela, we have a beautiful mile marker or kilometer marker. And again, you see the staff, the gourd, the clamshell with the rays going off of it. That's a corn crib, and they are also everywhere. They are enclosed completely. You can see there's a very sturdy roof. The corn is stored in here for when they want to grind it. There's a floor, and these are set up on legs, usually 18 to 36 inches above the ground. And this is to keep the mice, rats, any other vermin out of their store of corn. And it stays completely dry as it dries, ready for eating.
Michelle, how big a structure is that?
It'll probably be about 8 feet off the ground, probably 10 or 12 feet across, and the village would use it, or a prosperous farmer would use it. It's not one person's corn crib.
Okay, all right.
Here we are about 3 miles off the trail across the valley. We're looking at something at a distance before we used the long on the camera. It looked like a large mountain budding at the top of a mountain. As we got closer with the lens on the camera, we could see that it was actually man-made. And we were, I particularly, and I think Peter as well, very curious what on earth that could be out in the middle of practically nowhere. And so we decided to find out. We got down into Santiago de Compostela. There's a pilgrim greeting us. And immediately after, we have a dancing starfish. I'm not sure of that significance. And there's the gateway into the city, into the old city. Here's the cathedral to Santiago. I only took this part because there are modern, or only a couple of 100 years old, buildings on either side that aren't beautiful. And I decided I just wanted to have this picture, although I have hundreds of them. Inside is very elaborate, and this is the main altar. And you can see there's a lady in the foreground. And just looking at the scale of things, the altar is probably about 30 or 40 feet at least from where she's standing. Everything is gold. Everything is very beautiful, really, really beautiful. outside the cathedral. I love architecture and stone, whatever. This is the Plaza Obradero. And underneath, like corbels underneath of all of the parapets, along the walls, as you walk along, all of these wonderful carvings. These are my two favorites. The one before and this one. Again, no idea about the significance, but they're just everywhere and fascinating. Aha! We found the mountain. This is the Cidade da Cultura. It was built by an architect named Peter Eisenman of New York. It is another World Heritage Site, as is the city of Compostela. This is Peter in front of a ball of books, every language, every nationality, just a fascinating one. You can walk around and look at the various pages that are open. It's huge and it's wonderful. I love it. It does represent the entire world. The world of books. This is one of the doors to show you the staggering size of it. Peter and I are the reflections in the glass. They're probably 15 to 18 feet high. And in the reflection, you can see the walls behind us and of marble tiles. They're absolutely exquisite. All the walls, the entryway, which is probably maybe a 1/10 of a mile or more, both sides are just faced with these fantastic marble tiles. And there's the view of one of the buildings, and you can see there's a person in the foreground there, well, in mid-ground, I suppose. And it was still under construction in 2013. I would love to go back. The lines that divide up the various spaces on the roof are continued inside in the marble. And as you go from one of the rooms into the elevator, the lines and the visions complement one another. They are continuous. It's quite an amazing site.
Was the material quarried nearby, or?
I have no idea.
Wow.
I would maybe on Eisenman's site it would tell. If you look Cidade de Cultura, it might be there.
All right.
But it's stunning, the whole thing. This is a poster inside the door. It's a little fuzzy, but it is announcing that the Orinoco River and Orinoco Indians are going to be featured in this exhibit. It was the one main exhibit in the whole complex at the time because it was just opening. And those are the Orinoco Indians. These are bone flutes. And Phil and I had a little short chat because one of his granddaughters plays the flute. And I thought maybe she could get her hands on one of these. It was quite an experience, I'm sure. And this is a catamaran, a very old catamaran from the Orinoco River area, probably one of the main sources of transport, possibly still today. I have no idea how developed that area is. It's not really publicized for tourism. Anyway, that was our trip.
I love to go a-wandering along the mountain track, and as I go I love to sing my knapsack on my back. I love to wander by the stream that dances in the sun, so joyously it calls to me, come join my happy song. Valerie, Valera, Valerie, Valera, Valerie, Valera, come join my happy song. birds call so loud and sweet from every greenwood tree. Thal-de-ree, thal-de-ra, thal-de-ree, thal-de-ra, thal-de-ree, thal-de-ra, from every greenwood tree. High overhead the skylarks swing, they never rest at home. But just like me, they love to sing as o'er the world we roam. Oh, may I go a-wandering until the day I die, and may I always laugh and sing beneath the clear blue sky.
Amazing.
Oh, that was fascinating.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Amazing.
Yeah, remarkable, really unbelievable photography.
Oh,
So
thank-
how many miles did you traverse and how long were you on this trek?
We were on about 10 days and we traveled about 85 miles, which is 125, more or less 120. We did get off the path many times.
I see.
Things that were interesting. When we got into Santiago, we went to the pilgrim's office, and we did get our passports verified and validated, and then we got a little certificate, which we have. And we not infrequently, but not too frequently, join groups of pilgrims to do hikes. For one that's done every first Saturday of the year is over around Lake Merritt. That's about 3.5 miles, maybe a little bit more. And then we go to lunch at a local Spanish tapas restaurant. And yeah, so there's a bunch that do hikes all over California, all of the time, different degrees of difficulty. Yeah. So we left there and took the train up to A Coruña, and then flew off to the French Alps for my nephew's wedding, my great nephew's wedding. So we had a great trip. We were able to take off our packs. Thank goodness. They were very heavy at the end. If you don't do a lot of backpacking, you may not realize it, but every ounce becomes a pound by the end of the day.
How much did they weigh in actuality?
I think mine only weighed about 28 pounds. Peter's was
Only.
probably 32 or 35.
I have trouble with a 5-pound weight.
But you probably did need a sleeping bag to do a
Yeah.
weight. And we stayed in dormitories and a lot, and posadas, little inns that had rooms for travelers, and everything was very inexpensive for travelers. They're super generous. A 4-course meal we would pay if we went as tourists would probably be, I don't know, 40 or 50 euros. And for us, it was 10 euros. It's a spiritual trip. And so a lot of people probably go on it that don't have a lot of money.
Did
Do you
you
have any pictures of the? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Mel.
I'm sorry.
Any
Milton.
pictures of the facilities where you stayed?
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
You might stick in there for examples.
I don't know.
After hiking 10 miles, I would like to see where you're going to wind up hanging your sleeping bag.
You put your sleeping bag on one of the bunk beds, and you get into your sleeping sack, and it's usually a whole long room like a dormitory with a bunch of bunk beds.
Uh-huh.
So
Had you
I don't know
planned
if I
yours?
have-
Had you planned where you would stop ahead of time?
no,
It was just all as it happened.
yeah.
How wonderful.
That's what a lot of people do. A lot of people do. I have a cousin in El Salvador who did it with 3 or 4 friends, and they Salvadorans are not backpackers, by the way. At least my family is not. So they had an organized trip that would pick them up wherever they were and drive them to their lodgings where they had hot showers and et cetera, and take their day packs with them, and then they would catch up to their suitcases. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. Peter and I just love backpacking, and that was good for us.
Great.
And this won't be for the show, but for us, when we were back at the very beginning of the trail, we ran into a lady who was in her 60s. Now, we were in our 70s, so she was in her 60s, and she had come alone against the wishes of her children from the Netherlands, walking. She only spoke Dutch. She was traveling alone. Peter speaks Afrikaans, so he was able to communicate with her Dutch and his Afrikaans. They had good conversations. And so we passed each other and caught up and had a meal, and then passed each other, caught up, had a cup of coffee. We got just to the outskirts of Santiago, and she caught up with us, and she said, "Oh, there's been a miracle." And we were like, "Oh, what happened?" Miles and miles, maybe 400 or 500 miles back, she had washed out some of her hiking pants and put them on a line at one of the hostels, and got up back on the trail, gone about, I don't know, 25, 30 kilometers, and was too tired to turn around and go back. So she left them there on the line. And she walked along and walked along. As we got into just at the outskirts of Santiago, she said, "I saw some pants on a bush." And I looked at them and I thought, they look just like my pants. And so we said, "Well, were they?" And "They were my pants." So excited. Probably someone bicycling the trail, had picked them up, carried them along, knowing that they belonged to a traveler, thrown them on a bush, hoping that the person whose pants they were would find them. And she did.
Wow.
We had a
Perfect.
good laugh, the miracle of the pants. So
That's awesome.
Amazing.
That's great.
Michelle, it's you and Peter, right?
oh yeah, just the two of us.
Do you think you'll do it again?
No, we won't do that hike again. We did a couple of years later, we did Hadrian's Wall walk from across the top of England. It's steep, the old Roman, following the remains of the ruins of the old Roman wall and the community that lived there before the fierce Picts in Scotland forced them out. And that was fascinating, but in order to do that, you have to go off the trail a kilometer or more to get lodging, because there's nothing up there. It's just as it is. It's cold and windy, beautiful scenery. There are a few museums along the way with Roman antiquities. You can look down and see the Roman roads that are straight as an arrow and go for miles and miles and miles. But we were in the fortress area, which is quite different. So we did that one. And then we've done, kind of other things, but not long hikes like those two. So I don't know what we'll do. We've had COVID in between everything, all of us, after that, you were isolated, couldn't travel, whatever. So no, we've been pretty close to home. We've been to Africa and we've done other trips, but not backpacking.
I have a question.
Yes, Marilee.
The heritage site with all those buildings, is
Yes.
everything art or international art, or what is it for?
It is for international exhibitions. We were at I think one of the very first. It's brand new. Well, 10 years ago it was brand new. I'm sure that it's taken off from now. I haven't even looked it up. It's called Cidade, like ciudad in Spanish. Da cultura, of culture. It's Museum of Culture, and it would be
Okay, okay.
yeah.
It's-
So look it up. It's
Yeah,
about
it's
3 or 4 kilometers outside of the city.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Love it.
So
Nice.
Michelle, what was the elevation this trek that you were on? I mean, this was the lower part of the Pyrenees, right? On the Spanish side.
We are way across from there. I'll get my map. We are way over practically to Portugal.
Okay, all right.
I can tell you the elevations. If I just grab this quickly and look at our maps. They're not that high. Montegazo is about 1,000 feet.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's some, that's one of the higher ones. A lot of them are about 800 feet. You're up and down, up and down, up and down. Another one that's about 2,100 feet. It's not that. I mean, we were in our 70s. We did it.
Okay.
You can all do it. You can. It's wonderful. It's spiritual. It's fantastic, and the people are phenomenal. And the greeting to everyone is Buen Camino, which means have a wonderful walk. Phil, I think, went through. What did you go through, Phil? Did you say 2,000 2,000 shots to help me pick the ones that we
At least.
It was great. He made a special trip up on the side. He saw his son and daughter-in-law and grandchildren, but mainly to get together with me because I'm not that great on Zooming. So he pulled it all together, did a beautiful job finding. This is our album that Peter. And there's a script that goes with every picture. Kind of amusing, and so he was able to go through and pick and choose things that he thought might be interesting.
That's a wonderful journey. And can you talk a little bit about you were overnight, maybe 4 or 5 nights or more?
Every night. Well, we were in hostels and posadas and some inns, dormitories, but they're hostels or dormitories. Let's just face it, dormitories. Right. You just walk in, throw your bag down, and other, tons and tons of other people are coming and throwing their bags down, and you go out and look for.
You're basically throwing down your mat and sleeping in a sleeping bag, right?
Yeah. They're most of the hostels have bunk beds.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the biggest thing is flipping the coin, who gets the top and who gets the bottom.
Yeah. And how heavy were your backpacks?
I think my pack was lighter. Mine was probably 25 or more. Peter's was probably 28 to 30. Yeah. But we did a lot of hiking with the packs before. I mean, we put ourselves in a good place.
So
What kind of convenience stations they have along the way if you needed to relieve yourself?
Well, there's
Trees.
There's big trees. There's
Little trees.
coffee shops. Maybe that's one of the reasons that you have coffee morning and afternoon. The coffee stops are great.
And necessary.
Yeah. Yes.
So were there a lot of fellow travelers on
Yes,
this
there-
on this track?
there were a lot, but everyone is. I mean, there are occasionally groups of young people. Mostly people are one or two people together, or lots of solo travelers. A lot of them are looking at it as a spiritual, meditative, sort of like a filling up of their soul life. So you cross paths and you eat meal. You may decide to go to the same place for dinner, and you will sit at a long table. Almost all of the places that the pilgrims or the travelers go accommodate. It's like country eating. There's a huge long table, bowls of soup in the middle, bread in baskets. You know, you're not dressed to go much of anywhere fancy. So you go to the places that are welcoming you, and a pilgrim meal would be maybe 10 euros, 3 or 4 courses. And if you go to the restaurant down the street, it would be 50 or 60 euros. They treat the travelers very, very well.
What was it? What was the density of the hikers along the trail as you were walking?
The what?
Oh, the density. How many people did you run into or pass? Or...
Lots of space, truly. People would pass you, people, would sit and wait on a rock to have a conversation. Because we were there in July. And so we did not have hordes of people. It's a long way. And so, everyone was well spaced out, I would say. There are bicycle riders that come along. We had another incident. Peter and I always hold hands. He has neuropathy, so we always hold hands when we're walking along with our packs. And sometimes we have a walking stick. And as we were coming around the corner, we heard these boys behind us, and we pulled over to the side. And they were from Italy. They were a bunch of young Italians, probably university age. And as one came level with us, he screeched on the brakes of his bike, threw his bicycle into the bushes, raced over, gave Peter a great big bear hug, and said, "I want to be just like you when I grow up." He got back on his bicycle,
just like you.
stop again.
Oh, wow.
Two little old white-haired people along the trail.
Made the whole thing worthwhile.
Yes. So they went off chatting along the way, they were great.
Awesome.
So what's your next adventure?
Right now we're not planning anything. A few years after the Camino, we did Hadrian's Wall. It's about following the Roman wall, Hadrian built. And he was, of course, the Roman legions were up there. It's there's nothing there except a few outposts. The wall is crumbling. There's a couple of museums along the side. You go down off the path, but it's wild. It's just out in the wilderness, lots of wind. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful vistas. It's about 85 miles across, but you have to go down off the road to find a place to stay or a meal. There isn't anything on the road, on the path. And that's Hadrian's Wall walk. So at the moment, we're just doing short walks here and there.
Which would be long walks for most of us.
Yes.
Oh, you can do 5 miles. Come on, Barb.
Well,
Yeah. So, well, thank you all for showing up. It was really nice. I had no intention of doing this at all, and after saying that Jim will do it, and then I said Sue Steinman will do it, and then everyone said, "Yeah, what about you?" So I'm all carrying everyone around the place, but not getting on board. So I'm glad that it worked out.
Well, Michelle, in case someone out there might want to share one of their travel experiences down the road, could you just talk a little bit about what the dynamics were between you and Phil in putting this together?
Oh, well, as I say, Bill made a special trip up just to see me, and then his relatives. I think that Bill's done some long distance with Linda Koch and Bob over in Denmark. So just coordinating, I think having the materials available to both of you so that, you know, as you talk through it on a special Zoom with only the two of you, you know, being able to hold up the kinds of things that you think might be interesting. And these photos or your materials that you have put on a chip, or what do you call a cruiser, or a photo chip that he can look out
Right.
and copy for you, so you can talk back and forth. And I think lead time is really important. I mean, I'm delighted that it worked out as it did, but I think a couple of months lead time is not extraordinary.
Right. Well, thank you for that. That's a wonderful presentation. We appreciate it, Michelle.
Yes,
Well,
we
Thank you.